Why do you want to dance?
Why do you want to live?
I don't know exactly why, but I must.
That's my answer too.
All right, the movie opens up with a bunch of these restless ass art students coming in to see the ballet of, I'm gonna say this guy's name wrong because it's the Lermontov or Lermontov, Mr. Lermontov. Anyways, they're going in to see his ballet. In the beginning, you see these two distinct student groups. There's one group of students who's there to actually just see the composer because it's their music professor. And then we see another group of people who are there specifically to see the ballerina. So the ballet starts, the music starts up, and Craster's nuts start to like twist and wad up, and he's like feeling like uncomfortable and antsy, and he's not sure why until he realizes that the music being played is actually very, very similar to the music, his own Rhapsody, it's called, the music that he showed his professor, because he shows his professor all of his work. But at first he thinks it's just like a coincidence, and it coincidentally sounds similar. He's like, no, it's a coincidence. Like Professor Palmer wouldn't do that shit. Like he ain't about that. He's real as fuck though. So he's not actually playing my shit. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, Professor Palmer is like up in this little like thingamajig. It's called a box seat. That's what it's called. So Professor Palmer, he's up in this box seat, and then he receives a little like sexy ass note. Professor Palmer gets this note saying, hey, stay after the performance and bring your boy. I'm feeling freaky. Your boy being fucking Lemon-trough. We see the person who sent the note to Professor Palmer is the aunt of our main character, Victoria Page, but we're gonna call her Vicky throughout the rest of this video because that's how she's referred to in the movie. So we see the reason why the aunt sends Professor Palmer the note is so Victoria can dance in front of Lermontov and potentially get signed on with his ballet because dancing is her passion. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, the ballet keeps going and the music is sounding more and more Meanwhile, while all this is happening, the ballet keeps going and the music is sounding more and more familiar to Craster, and he's like, nah, this is for real, my mixtape. This is weird as fuck. I don't appreciate this. He gets pissed, he leaves. Jump cut to the after party. Professor Palmer is talking to Lermontov and he's like, hey, I gotta know, there's a girl who's gonna come in here and do her little two-step. Lermontov is like, that is not the reason I came here. I'm not trying to see no girl do her two-step. Like, I don't care. I don't want to see no amateurs. Enter the aunt. Aunt comes in, sits him down, and is like, listen, my girl, she is not no amateur, okay? She's in the papers. You know, people be talking about her little two-step. She got like her own like little routine going, okay? She is the real deal. She is like the next big thing. You're gonna want her in your ballet. And a very interesting line comes up. And Lermontov asks the aunt, like, what does ballet mean to you? And the aunt was like, well, you could say that it's the poetry of motion, which I thought was a pretty good answer. And Boris, which is the first name of Lermontov, or we're gonna call him Boris because I'm not saying that name, okay? Lermontov? Lemon grab? I don't know. But anyways, Boris says to her, ballet to me is a religion. One would not want to see the religion in practice in such an area. It basically insinuates that the theater is like his holy ground and an after party is just too vulgar for his art, which I think is really cool. So anyways, yeah, aunt tries to persuade him. Boris ain't having it. Another jump cut. Next, we see Vicky come in. And she is wearing this gown, which has to be my favorite dress in the movie because it's so simple, but it's so pretty at the same time. But it's so simple, but it's so fucking like, it's so like the green and the eyelet, I don't know. Something about eyelet fabric just turns me into Niagara Falls. I don't know why, but that's not the point. Anyway, she comes into the picture. She's pissed because she had her whole little Cupid shuffle planned out and it got canceled because he was like, I'm not having that shit. I don't want to see it. So she goes in, she finds him. And at this point, he doesn't know that this is the girl that was supposed to be dancing in front of him to show her prowess in ballet. So Boris just sees a pretty lady, so he's just talking her up. So he's talking, they both drinking, he's talking, and eventually he's like, this is gonna be a nice party. We were supposed to see a dancing exhibition today, but you know, apparently we were spared from that horror. And Vicky looks at him and she goes, Mr. Lermontov, I am that little horror. And more on that later, because it looks like my lips are greasy. You see that? You see like the light reflecting? It looks like I ate like a 10-piece combo. Anywho, Boris is embarrassed. Both of his cheeks are turning pink and he don't know what to say. So eventually, as an apology, he says, look girl, you can come up to rehearsals. We can see that little like down, do your best that you do. If you do it good, then like, you know what? You might even be part of my ballet. So another jump cut. Actually, ad break before that jump cut because this is to be because we're broke as fuck. So anyways, it's morning. Boris is up. Someone's banging on his door. whatever. And then we see Craster. Craster comes in, nuts still wadded up like a chewed up piece of Hubba Bubba, because he sent Boris a letter that he wants back before Boris has the chance to read it. Come to find out, Boris had read Craster's letter before he even came, and it's just this letter bitching and moaning saying that his Professor Palmer stole his freak playlist and was putting it forward as his own. Boris is actually impressed with Craster's work and asks him not necessarily to compose music just yet, but he asks him to coach his orchestra. So at this point in the story, Vicky and Craster have a job, or a chance at a job actually, with the Lermontov Ballet. A lot in between happens and it's good, but for the sake of time, we're gonna cut it down. So yeah, so we're basically just seeing Vicky and Craster becoming more ingrained with the ballet and rise up the ranks in a sense, and become more familiar with each other in the process. A little bit later, we see like they're practicing for, I think, Swan Lake. I don't know what the ballet is, but they're practicing, and we see the actual principal ballerina. She stops in the middle of practice to announce that she's getting engaged. She's gonna be married, woohoo! One little tidbit. When she announces her engagement, everyone rushes in, and then the male principal ballerina comes in and refers to her as a little whore, like in a playful sort of way. Almost kind of referencing back to the beginning of the movie when Vicky refers to herself as a little horror when talking to Boris for the very first time. When the principal ballerina is getting referred to as the little horror, it's because she's eventually going to leave the ballet because she found love. Almost feels like something that's going to happen in this movie with Vicky, but more on that later. After getting all of her congratulations, the principal ballerina is looking for Boris to see if he has anything to say to her, but he left because he's pissed. Apparently, oh shit. Okay.
Are you doing something?
Yeah.
Just close your eyes then. I'll be in the bathroom.
Okay. Can I have an apple? It's really weird, but basically his whole mentality is you can't fall for human comforts like love and relationships when you're a dancer, because your whole energy should be put into your passion and ambition of dancing. You have no time for no dick, okay? All this extra audio in my video.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, he goes away and he asks Craster in. And at this point, he's not a composer for Boris just yet, but Boris invites him to be one when they're making the ballet, The Red Shoes. As Boris is describing it, Craster doesn't even hear the words that he's saying. Instead, it fades off and he can just hear the beginning music for the orchestra. And I think that's honestly really beautiful, that as he's describing the ballet, he can hear the music for the ballet before he even works on it. I'm looking at my laptop, but I'm not looking over there.
Better be over there.
Boris invites Craster to compose the music for the new ballet, and he invites Vicky to be the principal ballerina. So when I first watched the movie, I thought she was getting engaged, so she quit so that way she can go and be engaged and shit. But never in the movie did she say like, oh, I'm gonna quit. She just announced that she's engaged. And so based off how the rest of the movie goes, I'm gonna assume that Boris low-key fired her because she was gonna be married.
You can't get dick and work, you know?
Can't get dick and work, apparently. It's dick or dance, Dan. If you had to choose between dick and dance, what would you choose, Dan?
I think dick.
So anyways, they're working and rehearsing the ballet, The Red Shoes, which is basically a ballet about a girl who gets these red bottoms. She turned up at the club with them. Little does she know that these shoes are basically cursed. So when she tries to go home, she can't because she can't stop dancing. She dances her whole life, dances through love, life, tragedy, until she ultimately dies. That's the short version of it, but in the movie they show basically the whole ballet, and it's really beautiful, so I really invite you guys to watch it. It's on Tubi, so it's free, so I don't want to hear no excuses. Anyways, as they're rehearsing the play, Vicky and Craster are spending a lot of time together, and sometime after the debut performance of The Red Shoes, they start falling in love. Boris finds out about this and he is not having it. He's kind of like the anti-cuck, if you think about it. But it's interesting to know, even though he is completely against this, a lot of the events that led to them falling in love is actually really his fault. In fact, there's even a scene, he keeps telling Vicky nothing matters but the music. Like nothing is more important than the music of this ballet. And he even makes her eat lunch with Craster while he's playing music for her to make sure that she memorizes it. Anyways, rehearsal happens, the ballet happens, Craster and Vicky are in love. Boris is fucking pissed. Anyways, fast forward, she's still principal ballerina, she's still dancing for Boris's ballet, and right now she's performing Swan Lake. Boris is looking at her. Now he's not looking at her with an eye of admiration, instead he's looking at her with a very critical eye instead. So he's looking at her and he's like, wait, did you see that? She's not focusing on dancing, she looked at Craster, because Craster's the composer, so he's in like the fucking orchestra pulpit that's in front of the stage. So he's accusing her of looking at Craster while performing instead of being focused on performance. And he looks over at Craster, and as Craster's performing, he very subtly like blows a kiss to Vicky, and then he keeps composing. Is that what? I'm not looking at, I have to look at the camera at some point. What's interesting to note though, is that they show a shot of Craster and we can see that he does like blow a kiss at Vicky, but they show Vicky as well as Boris is looking at her. And it's interesting because she doesn't look at Craster. I replayed it and I kept looking at it to see if it's just super subtle, but no, she's just dancing and it's kind of in Boris's head in a sense. And so when I first watched the movie, I thought Boris was right that because they're all in love and shit and they're trying to do some cute little dates and whatever, that they're not focused on. Dan, what are you opening?
Stop. Oh my god.
I can't have the audio, bro.
Now you can't look over here.
But since Boris is so sure that boning leads to shit performing, he comes up with all this shit in his head. It's adorable. No grippers. Not for free. Hey man, you gotta get your balls out of Vicky's jaws, okay? Because her two-step is off and her performance isn't right. Craster fights back and he says, nah, her two-step wasn't off and my balls are staying right where they are. Boris fights back and he says, her performance was shit, and speaking of shit, the new mixtape that you composed for the new ballet stinks and I'm gonna fire your ass. Craster honestly doesn't believe that his music that he composed for the new ballet is bad at all, and he thinks that Boris is being ridiculous. So he's like, fine, fuck you, I'm leaving. The next scene kind of further cements to me that Boris is being a little ridiculous because there's a character that I didn't bring up, but he's also in the movie. He's a ballet dance choreographer named Grisha. So as Boris is showing Craster out, Grisha's like, oh, by the way, I have half the ballet choreography done for the next ballet. And Boris is like, hey, we ain't gonna need that because we're finding Craster and we don't need his bum ass music anyways. Grisha at this point is pissed because he's like, listen, I've been the fuck, how do you say that word? Choreography? Grisha says that he's been choreographing ballets for years and he's like, I think I would know trash music when I hear it. And Craster's music is good, you're off the perk, you're crazy. And Boris is like, too damn bad, you're gonna have to choreograph a whole new ballet because we're not using his music. Grisha's like, man, fuck you, I'm not dealing with this bullshit anymore. And then he quits, and he's been in the movie the entire time. And I think this scene is supposed to really cement that Boris is kind of crazy because the personality of Grisha, he's a very straightforward person, and at times he's actually pretty rude. So he wouldn't say that Craster's music is good just to be nice. Anyways, this whole thing trickles down to Vicky, obviously, and Vicky's like, well, if you're firing Craster, I'm leaving too because what you did was fucked up. Boris is like, you're making a mistake, you're gonna regret that. Vicky's like, I don't care. That D, I can dance on that D all night, okay? So I'm leaving. And through a long ass conversation, Boris basically rehires Grisha, but Vicky and Craster ultimately left the ballet. And unfortunately, this doesn't solve their relationship problems. It actually makes their problems a lot worse.
Think of being broke and in a relationship and you're just fighting about nothing.
It's not really about them being broke though. It's more about,
well, they have no job, right?
It's about them both having a very deep passion for what they do. So Craster is in love with music and Vicky is in love with dance. And so when they're basically away from that and they're not pursuing their passions, it's almost like a couple of drug addicts going through withdrawals. We also get this pretty cool scene. It's nighttime and they're asleep and they're in bed and they're facing away from each other in these separate beds. And at no point in the movie have they looked more disconnected. They're both feigning after their craft so hard and so much that it gets to the point that a wind is blowing and Craster doesn't hear the wind. He hears music in the wind. He eventually tiptoes out of the room to go play piano, and once Vicky hears the piano, she gets up, and what's interesting is that she doesn't immediately get up to go after Craster. She gets up, goes to her dresser, and she touches and picks up her ballet shoes. Anyways, eventually after she's done sniffing the shoes or whatever, she goes out of the bedroom and she goes to Craster. And they go from being so incredibly disconnected to hugging again, because it was his love for music and her love for dance that connected them in the first place.
That's beautiful. That's great.
I think you would really like the movie. Meanwhile, we go back to Boris and that brother is starved. He invited back the old principal dancer, but he still misses Vicky and her way of dancing. Oh, I got cheese on my laptop. He wants Vicky back so bad that he's not even trying to do the subtle shit no more. He goes and he tracks her down and they eventually meet up. They talk, they keep it casual. He talks about that ballet and how everyone in the crew is doing, and she talks about her and Craster. Come to find out, Craster eventually did find an opera to compose in. So he's still pursuing his music and his ambition and his career. And although she's danced a bit, she's still going to ballet class, she's not pursuing ballet. Although Vicky has danced in other ballets, she still doesn't feel fulfilled because nothing makes her feel the way Boris's ballet makes her feel. So eventually, after all this talking and convincing, Boris convinces Vicky to go back to his ballet to play the Red Shoes again. Mind you, ever since the debut of the Red Shoes, he hasn't had it done again because he believes that Vicky is the only right principal ballerina for that ballet. But anyways, yeah, he convinces Vicky to go back to his ballet. Fast forward, Vicky is about to perform the Red Shoes again, but she's not really focused on that. Instead, she's listening to the radio, trying to listen to Craster compose his music for this new opera. Funnily enough, Boris is doing the exact same thing in his office. So they both hear at the same time that something happened to Craster. He actually won't be composing tonight as he has fallen ill. And before they even have time to be confused, boom, Craster goes into her dressing room door. He's there and he found out that she's sneaking around trying to dance in her little red dancing shoes for Boris. He comes in looking mad. He looks like he's about to yell or like hit her or something. And he walks up to her and he gets on his knee. He gets on his knees saying all types of shit. Basically saying, baby girl, I missed you. I couldn't even think about composing music because I love you. Take that costume off and we'll go to the train. We're gonna leave. And then before Vicky even has time to think, Boris rushes into the costume room like, oh hell nah. She is not going with you. She is ambitious. She wants to be a dancer and your ass is holding her back to be no domestic waste of a life, having a bunch of screaming kids and doing nothing with her life. She likes to dance. She loves to dance. Dancing is her life. And she's gonna go on that stage and do her little two-step. So basically at this point, Vicky isn't even saying nothing. It's Craster and it's Boris who are fighting. And something interesting said during the fight is by Craster, and he tells Boris that he is jealous of Vicky. Very interesting, because he doesn't tell Boris that he's jealous of him, for dating Vicky. He says that Boris is jealous of Vicky. Boris admits, yes, I am jealous of Vicky, but in a way that you don't understand. More on that later. Craster's like, man, fuck you, whatever. Come on, baby girl, we out of here, right, babe? Vicky, she is a mess. She's crying. She don't know what to do. She legitimately doesn't know what to pick. She loves dance. She can't imagine abandoning that passion of hers, but she doesn't want to abandon Craster. So all she really says is, I love you. And that's all she can really think to say, because she doesn't want to leave the ballet. Eventually Craster's like, damn, she ain't gonna pick me. I'm like, this is like the equivalent of like, he's getting the rose and he's getting his ass sent home, okay? So he takes the hint, he leaves, gives her a little kiss goodbye, and he dips to go on that train. Vicky, a mess, in shambles. Boris is trying to comfort her, like, hey girl, you made the right choice. Men ain't shit, love ain't shit, but that little dancey dance you do, that little tap dance that you do, that's gonna get you the credibility that you're craving. And you made the right choice in following your ambition. But the way she looking and the way she acting, she does not feel as assured as Boris does. Now, she's about to go and walk out onto the stage. And as she's about to walk towards the stage theater, she starts to hear the music, and you see this like realization come over her face. She hears the music, she gets this look of realization on her face. She's running. We see like this scene of her feet, like she's running down the stairs because she's just so sure. And I almost feel like she's running so fast because she almost wants to do it before she can talk herself out of it. She goes up to this balcony, and what's so sad about this scene is that she's at a balcony where you can see it from the train. So Craster sees her at the balcony. And so when he first sees her, he's waving up at her, smiling, because he's thinking, oh, she's coming back because she picked me over dance. So you kind of see like this look on his face where he's kind of smiling a bit and he's waving like, hey, I'm over here. And then the train comes, she jumps. And I think it's like a combination of not only did she jump off the balcony, but she also got hit by the train because she jumped right as the train came. And you just see his face go from happiness to he just completely crumbles. Back to the theater. Boris is up on stage and he's talking. This is the very interesting part to me. He goes on stage and he looks teary-eyed a bit, but he is by no means crying. And he announces that she's dead. And they're going to go on with the ballet because he believed it's what she would have wanted, but they're not gonna have anyone as the main ballerina. So the ballet goes just without the main ballerina. And it's very interesting to watch in the movie, but imagine your favorite show and think of the main character and imagine if the character just wasn't there and didn't have any lines. Jump cut back to the train tracks. We see her dying. Craster's there like, I'm here. And this is another interesting part. She looks at him and she asks him to take off the red shoes. And so he goes to her feet, he takes off the red shoes. And the minute he takes off the red shoes, she dies, and that's the end of the movie. So let's talk about the very interesting idiosyncrasies and what's sort of insinuated in the film. So when I first watched the film and I took the film at face value, admittedly I was pretty pissed because I was like, what the fuck? Why is Craster so hell-bent on her not being in this ballet? It made absolutely no sense to me. But upon my second watch, I looked at the movie more metaphorically. So in the beginning of the movie, there's a few things, more so on Vicky's side. When she's talking to Boris, he asks her, why do you want to dance? And she replies, why do you want to live? He's interested by that, and he answers saying, I don't know why I want to live, but I must. And she says, that's my answer too. I think what the movie is trying to portray, Vicky is the very embodiment of dance, and Craster is the very embodiment of music. That's why she couldn't see herself going on without dance, but she couldn't see herself going on without Craster either. Something else important to note that I didn't say earlier is that during the rehearsal of the Red Shoes, something that keeps getting repeated multiple times in those scenes where they're doing the rehearsal is nothing matters but the music. Nothing matters but the music. Nothing matters but the music. They're saying this to all the ballerinas practicing. Nothing matters but the music. Vicky loves dance, but Craster was her music. Ballet is magical because of the music that gives life to it, and emphasis and mystique and mystery and horror and beauty. And that's what Craster did for her life ultimately. But yeah, there's a lot of beautiful scenes. It's beautiful costumes. It's amazing actors. Everyone acts so well. It's all really beautiful. So I invite you guys to go and watch The Red Shoes. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video.